Hello and welcome to Bat Flips and Nerds, the baseball podcast with a British twist. I am your host this evening, Russell Easom, and this evening I am here with Darius. Darius, welcome to your first pod of 2025.
It is, isn't it? It's been a while. Yeah, almost made it through the whole of January. You and John are just hogging the airtime, Russ. Can't get my way in.
Yes, that's because me and John have been all putting interviews for when we can actually do them. Sod everybody else.
John did
Uh,
ask me about Kyle, to be fair, but I was on my way home at the time he was starting, so I thought it was probably not appropriate.
yes, and also joining me, fresh off his hooded up traitor's behavior that we saw last week, Rob Navarez. How are we doing?
Still have the hood. Otherwise, yeah, I'm beginning of a cold, so if I do sound a little husky and sexy, you're only human, I understand, but that could be coming over.
So yes, this week we're going to do a quick exercise, what we like to call ins and outs or keep spins, where we're going to just look through some things from 2024 that we want to say goodbye to, some things we want to keep, and some things we expect to be new in 2025. But before we do that, I feel that there has been an important moment in baseball that we must discuss. I think we saw potentially the bat flip that had the highest hang time I've ever seen. I think it may have also got about 60 meters in the air. I'm talking about Junior Caminero's go-ahead home run in the Game 7 of the LIDOM final. Um, Darius, LIDOM mental, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who hadn't seen anything from LIDOM before probably got a flavor of what the experience is like. I think it was a pretty good advertisement for the game. Obviously, it sounds like some people have been grumpy about this, showing pitches up, not behaving in the way that players are supposed to behave. But I mean, if you watch that and you don't think that's fantastic, then I guess maybe you don't like joy. I don't know. Just a great time all around. Wonderful bat flip. Is it a bat flip at that point? Do we have to call it something else when it reaches that altitude?
A bat
When we can
launch.
bat launch, yeah. Terminal. It escaped the atmosphere. I don't know what we call it, but it was great. And yeah, lead is a great time, a great way to fill the gap in between the baseball seasons. So I'm all for it. Well done, Junior Caminero.
And Rob, I feel that as this man makes you playing for the team that you are a fan of, this is only something that you can be more excited about to come from him. And congratulations, Rob, you are muted. Good way to start the pod.
Hey, nice and professional around here. What I was saying was, yes, it's not his fault. However, forgive me if I'm not excited about the young Dominican phenom who's going to be playing middle infield for the Rays next year. Been burned before. Um, yeah, the guy's electric. It's fantastic. Barring something awful happening, he's going to be, the next big flashy Ray to be dancing around the infield and doing special things for the race. So, yeah, I'm really excited about him. I think it's fantastic that he's showing off his spirit. I mean, we're all fairly on a line on this podcast that we all kind of agree that we would rather see people backflipping and showing. He had tears at the end of the game because he really really meant it. He really really excited about it. He was really clearly in it. Now, maybe there's going to be a bit of the chap needs to calm down and get his head in the game properly. Maybe I'm sure there's a lot of that coming, but yeah, the guy's exciting. He's electric. He's the top prospect, and boy, do we need it.
Yes, I think that's a highlight for Rays fans is something that is probably needed right now, especially given, yes, Wanda, two, not having a stadium to play in and having to play in a mini Yankee stadium in Florida, which is probably will just be full of Yankees fans. So, yes.
Stop it. It's depressing, and you're making it more depressing. We'll come to that later.
Okay, so as I said briefly at the top of the show, we're going to talk about some wants and some believes from 2024 and 2025. So we're going to start off with we've got two things each here that we want to bin from what happened in 2024. Um, I'll start off as we'll go for this. I want to bin the kit issues. I don't want to be spending spring training wondering kind of like why is MLB and Nike and Fantrax seemingly made a product worse. Like it was an absolute faux pas, really kind of like open goal blunder by everybody involved, making the lettering smaller, making the kits more see-through, making the quality that the players got seemingly worse, and the quality that the fans could get seemingly worse. They just scored such an own goal, and I don't know if it's disappeared, but what I've seen from a few of the signings is that there does look to be better word like lettering on those signing jerseys, but who knows what's to come. I'm assuming Rob, you were probably as furious as the rest of us with those kits last year.
No, completely the opposite. Who doesn't want to see young, attractive people's bodies, which I can see an awful lot of? Um, no, I was lucky enough to go to San Francisco last year. Visited San Francisco and Oakland. Saw some games there. Uh, and honestly, in person, that cream San Francisco Giants uniform was, I mean, it looked bad on TV, but my God, when you were there looking at it, you could see details. Really, you could see details. I don't want to come over all McRowley here, but like I could see actual details of the bottom of people's jerseys tucked into their trousers and beyond, like well beyond. I shouldn't have been able to see a lot of the stuff I should see. So if we could just get some trousers you can't see through, the rest of it I can probably deal with. But I mean that would be a really big start.
Yes, I think that would be. So then, Darius, give us something to throw in our MLB Room 101.
Throw in Room 101. Well, we've got in so much trouble with Room 101 already in the past.
I'm not just talking about things that happened in 2024. Let's not just throw in cycles again and the fan bases.
I'm going to throw something in that I already know is not going to be going in the bin, but ought to be going in the bin. And that is the San Francisco Giants having a different left fielder every single year. And for those who don't know, this is basically the curse of Barry Bonds. The Giants have not had the same player start in left field on opening day since Barry Bonds was on the Giants, which, as many of you will know, was a pretty long time ago. Barry Bonds has been retired for nearly 20 years now. So this is a farce. I'm actually, you know what, I'm going to get the list. We can play Remember Some Guys with San Francisco Giants left fielders. But yeah, it's a farce. The reason we know it's not going to happen this year is because Michael Conforto started in left field for the Giants on opening day last year, and obviously Michael Conforto has now signed with the Dodgers. So the Giants will once again, whoever it ends up being, have a different player in left field. And I mean, it's kind of, I sort of don't want it to end at some point, but also it's a damning indictment of the Giants organization that we literally can't get somebody to just stand in left field and be sort of semi-competent for long enough to be the starter for 2 consecutive years. So yeah, that's what I would like to get in the bin, but I'm going to have to wait until 2026 at least, and probably another 20 years at this point.
Yeah, I feel like that list is probably ridiculous. I think I could probably go back. I could maybe guess what Haniger for the year before and Jock Pedersen maybe the year before that. But
We'll do the whole list since Bonds started in left field in 2007, April the 3rd, 2007. Here's the list. It's Dave Roberts, 2008. Fred Lewis, 2009. We've got Mark DeRosa, 2010. Then Pat Burrell, Aubrey Huff, of course. Andres Torres. Who remembers Andres Torres? Good little fancy player for a moment there. Mike Morse, Giants legend Mike Morse. Nori Aoki, Angel Pagan. We've got Jarrett Parker. Completely forgot Jarrett Parker even existed. Hunter Pence.
Wow.
Connor
How
Jones.
did he not do 2 years?
Well, he was in right
field, yeah.
Previously.
Yeah.
Connor Joe kicking around still. Alex Dickerson, Austin Slater, and Jock Peterson. Blake Sable, not even really a left fielder, kind of a catcher, utility guy. And then Michael Conforto. That's the list. The Hall of Shame. The Giants left fielders who have replaced Barry Bonds.
Who's likely to do this year?
Who is likely to do this year? That's a good question.
I put you right on the spot now, haven't I?
Yeah. I think it'll probably be Yaz, because I'm assuming that Lee will be good to start in center field. So
what does Fangraphs say?
Yeah, I'm not even sure what we have. Let's
Heliot
see.
Ramos.
Ramos, yeah, maybe he has a play it right. Either way, Ramos is a good shout because obviously there's like a decent chance. If it's Yaz, then he'll probably like be too old. We'll have cut him by next season. We'll get another guy. Ramos is 25, so there's hope
And
that
remember
that might happen.
and if he does that, he might have earned getting his home run ball back by doing something that breaking that curse, Darius.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, like Ramos did play left field a decent chunk last season, so that's our best hope that happens, and obviously that he actually is as good as he looked for sections of last season. We'll see about that. You'll understand my pessimism. So that can get in the bin, but it's not going to.
Yeah, but that the list of guys, like there's some genuinely fine, like, yeah, we're not talking superstars, but there's some genuinely fine blokes on that list who there's no reason why they couldn't have done a second year. What's caused the curse? Is it injuries? Is it lack of wanting to keep good players around? What's happened?
You won 3 World Series during that time period.
Exactly.
That's the hilarious part. We won 3 World Series.
So much of a curse. Oh no, we've been cursed that we've won 3 World Series during.
Woe is me.
Woe is Darius.
Long-suffering Giants fan.
Okay, yeah, Rob, what are we binning?
Oh, good lord! I've got a list written down here. Sorry, I was looking at past and present Giants. Then Pagan in particular, he just caught my attention. I forgot he existed. Anyway, moving on. Things to bin. Everyone getting along. It's horrible. Over the last, so I've done a bit of research. I've gone back and looked, and I felt that over the last year, we've seen fewer and fewer fights and ejections. And now a lot of people, of course, will say that like we don't want people fighting because make peace not law. Blah, blah, blah. But I, for one, like it because it's something a bit different, and there's always something to talk about. There's a bit of discourse. Something fancy happens when there's an ejection. So I went back and looked and tried to prove my point that there were in fact fewer ejections last year, and I was absolutely right. So going back to 2014, there's been a decided curve down. So we started at 201 in ejections in 2014. And then we got less and less and less and less. Then we had a blip in 2019 where everyone seemed to want to fight each other for some reason, which was great. And then it carried on that trajectory.
Could
Obviously,
that have just
2020 we take
been
out.
that one game between the Pirates and the Reds?
Yes, probably. Probably very, very important part of that, yeah. So yeah, we obviously had the blip in 2020, and then we carried on it. And then again, 2023 was a huge year for ejections. Absolutely huge for reasons beyond me, I don't know. But then we've continued on that downslide again. We've got back on the curve, and we are removing ejections from the game, which means there's less and less, people getting in each other's grills, and we're getting more and more times where everyone's just getting on. And you know what? I don't care about that. It's sport. It's pugilistic. It's one person against another. That's what it's all about. So I want to see the everyone picking flowers, holding hands, and singing "Kumbaya" going into the bin because I think we need more fights, more suspensions, more ejections, and more discords.
So you heard it here first. Rob wants more headhunting. Darius.
Headhunting's just a
That's
small part of it.
a
But carry
hot
on.
take. People who think that we agree too much in this podcast, I'm going to pass on this take. No, I would like no headhunting. Can we have 0 ejections this season? I'm changing mine. That's one of mine now. I want no ejections the whole season. Aaron Boone,
Adrian
looking at you.
Beltre got ejected for a very, very, very entertaining reason. I want more of that.
Okay, only joke ejections this season. We can agree on that.
And oh, come on, like, what's better than a manager arguing balls and strikes? He's come out, he's kicked the dirt across the mound, he's screaming in some guy's face. He's probably screaming, like, how's your wife? But, he's having a shout at the umpires. He gets tossed, the hat's flying, there's all the infielders stood around looking slightly embarrassed. Who doesn't want to see that? That's great. I mean, as long as nobody's actually getting hurt, I'm all about it. Let's get people kicked out of games.
It needs to be like Kyle Schwarber levels of demonstrative, like
Spot on.
over the top, just very theatrical. Because, especially if you're in the crowd, you can't really see that well what's going on. You've really got to do the hand gestures and fully go for it. Yeah. Yeah. I can just see Schwarber. I've lost my headphones.
Aaron Boone getting ejected for something he didn't even say last year was one of my absolute highlights. He didn't say anything, and that was beautiful. It made beautiful audio, beautiful visuals. Who didn't love that? We all saw that. Did you watch, the Royals play the Tigers for the seventh time of the season? No, you didn't. But you did watch that random game because, you know, that ridiculous ejection happened. So more of that. That's what we want.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with coaches and manager ejections because they're usually just semi like performative anyway, to kind of like to try and rile up the team or to do that. So that sort of stuff, I think that's sort of fine. Maybe less player ejections, but who get well, Rob
Bat
has
boys, mascots. There's plenty more people you can eject. Idiots who force Mookie Betts' hand open. Let's go kick people out the stands. It's great. Let's do all of that.
yeah, we need some accordion players in the major league to get ejected. Have you seen the video of that one where it's like some minor league or independent game where the organist player starts playing three blind mice and the umpire decides to eject the organist?
I like that. Put that in the description. I want to see that one.
Okay, back to me for something to bin. We need to bin the current playoff rules or how to deal with ties because last year was a farce. That Mets versus Atlanta Braves second game was absolutely disgusting. It was utterly disrespectful to anybody else involved in this sport. There was no way in any shape or form that the Mets attempted to win that game. They swung at absolutely everything. They swung at things that were outside of the zone. They swung more often outside of pitches in that single game than they did in any other game in Major League that year. Go look at the numbers. It's there. Like it is the same level as like I've put in our notes the disgrace of Dijon, which some people will know and some people will not know, when West Germany won 1-0 against Austria, and they both managed to get through at the plight of the Tunisian national team in the 1982 Football World Cup. I honestly think people should have kicked up more of a fuss about this. I genuinely think it was a disgrace to the sport. And it has come about because we now have these tiebreaker rules where it's just about who plays against each other and we don't get to have game 163 anymore.
Endorsed. No, no
Okay.
arguments.
If
Terrible.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, I think the obvious reason we need to do this is because we have expanded the playoffs, and I was initially maybe a bit skeptical about that, but I think we're at a good level now because I think it does keep more fans entertained. But with those numbers, with an extra round of wildcard games, if we have yet another round of games to sort these out, we're pushing it back even further into winter. And we've been lucky that most of these games have been played in either a dome or in Los Angeles. But that New York series could have really stumbled into some poor weather. We saw it a few years ago in Philadelphia, quite a few years ago now, where it was absolutely bloody freezing. We could get snow in some places. So I think I genuinely tend to agree with you guys. But if you're gonna play the counter there, we've got to we'd be more in uproar if we've say got a World Series in Pittsburgh and Minnesota and it's under 3 foot of snow for the whole time. So we got to get these games in. So there's a way of doing it without having to schedule a day off, game, another day off on top of it. But I
Yeah.
actually agree.
For those players, I feel like it's tough shit. It's just like you got to play another game, and if you've got to play another game the day afterwards, well, you got to do that. If you got to play another game and then got to play another game the same day and then play another game afterwards, should have had a better record during the season. So you take all of the punishments that you get. Darius, what are you putting in the bin for your second one?
I am binning contrived home run celebrations. I don't mind if it's like something that emerges a bit organically and you can tell there's like a story behind it, something that happened spontaneously. That's cool. Like, I'm not saying we can't have home run celebrations, but now it's just like every team feels like they've got to come up with their own little home run celebration. And it's just not very interesting to me. Maybe there's like one or two novelty times that is entertaining and then it gets boring. Some of them are just not even really good from the start. It's just like a thing they feel like they need to do now for team spirit or whatever, which, fine. Whatever you need to get you through the 162 game season. But I'm going to take a pass on the vast majority of them. They're not really doing it for me. That weird sausage thing the Brewers had going last year was just disgusting. I'm not even going to describe it. You can just Google Brewers sausage and see what happens, people. Just do. that. So yeah, I'm gonna pass. So let's see who comes up with the first stupid home run celebration that I can complain about on the pod.
So obviously you're not a fan of the dong bong. What I want to say is that do you watch any
Yet
NFL,
again, we're back
Darius?
to bongs with Russell on this podcast. But sorry, carry on.
Darius, do you watch much American football? I think the answer no, isn't it?
I don't really these days, no.
So the Minnesota Vikings over the course of this season have been creating new celebrations weekly for if certain players score a touchdown, and they've been going through a selection of Disney classics. So they have been doing scenes from Camp Rock and from High School Musical. Would you be okay with these celebrations if it was like a different celebration every time, but it was more choreographed, or is it the kind of repetitive nature of something that kind of just bores you quickly?
I think the repetitive is a big part of it. Yeah. I think maybe it would depend on the choreographing. I think that maybe would also get a bit dull after a while. It'd be quite funny to see some MLB players having to do a choreographed routine, especially if they were really grumpy about it. I might be into that if they were like, just like grizzled veterans being forced to do like a Glee style home run celebration dance. That would make me laugh. But again, you could ask me a couple of weeks after they started, and I'd be like, I'm bored of this now. So I want the variety, really. It's definitely I can't imagine doing it for 162 games and it still being entertaining, no matter what it is, really.
That's a hot take there. That Darius is interested in the choreography. If we get Matthew Bourne in, we get some you know, proper top-notch ballet going on. We're in, but he just doesn't want to see anybody flapping around.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to think like who is the funniest person who would be made to do
Oh,
a
Max
overly
Scherzer.
choreographed. Yeah, yeah, making Mad Max do one. Like if Brian McCann was around, who's like the Brian McCann now, like rules police. I'm not having this.
Okay, Rob, give us our last thing from 2024 that we want to put into the bin.
2024 into the bid. Deferrals. Let's get controversial. Okay, so it's not for the reason that everyone else is going on about deferrals, because I've had heard a lot of arguments saying, it's bad for competitive balance, it's bad for the players, it's bad for the teams. I really couldn't care less who it's good for and who it's bad for. My issue with deferrals is it's just weird rich people shit. Um, the three, if I doubt either any of the three of us, if we could say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to defer half of my wages now for the next 10 years," bullshit. I'm on the streets. I'm not driving my car. I'm barely eating. It's weird people shit, and I don't want to have to know about it because it's just a different world, and it's silly. Like they do a job, pay for the job, go home. And I really don't care if it's great for the players or it's great for the teams. I don't care. It's stupid, weird people, rich people shit, and I'm not interested in it. I would rather it just went away purely because I don't like it. I want it to go away, and I don't care who it's good for, who it's bad for. It's just weird, and it needs to go. Just pay people for what they're doing now, and that is that. Also, clearly some there's going to be a scandal about some tax evasion bollocks coming out of that in a few years' time, whereby someone isn't actually,
Oh, that's the whole
they're not
point.
actually in the place with it. Of course it is, but someone's going to get caught up in it, and then the whole house of cards is going to come collapsing down. And I don't want that discourse either. It's weird rich people problems, and I'm not interested in it. Thank you very much. Can we just take it away?
Yeah, I think that the two main sides of why it does exist is one, so basically a player's contract can look bigger than it actually is. The
Mm,
Otani one is effectively partially done so he could get the biggest contract of all time, even though
absolutely.
it absolutely wasn't, but it just makes it look like that. The other side to it, as you said, it's quite a bit about deferring the money to different times when you might not actually be living in
Hmm.
certain areas or certain tax areas, or more importantly, major league players get taxed every place that they go and play as well. So if you basically just defer this money to when you're not playing, you'll get paid that and not have to deal with doing your taxes in every single city that you go through. So I definitely think some of it is there to kind of keep the money out of other people's pockets. But I do get not wanting it because it's a faff to try and understand what it's going on. The only reason why I like having deferrals is because we don't end up with as much Bobby Vanilla Day bollocks as we did before in the past because everybody was just like, "Oh, look at the Mets, they're still playing Bobby Vanilla," and it's like, yeah, it's actually that's good. Them restructuring their contract was actually a thing that they did that was smart. But everybody's just like, "No, they're still playing Bobby Vanilla." Darius, any thoughts?
I agree with that statement. I don't know that there is always. I feel like it's sort of knee-jerk reaction at this point. Somebody just posts something about Bobby Bonilla, and it's like, let's laugh at the Mets. We don't need Bobby Bonilla to laugh at the Mets, do we? Like, there's lots of material out there. Maybe not now that signed Juan Soto. Maybe the Mets will no longer be the figure of fun in MLB. But over the years, there have been many, many more reasons to laugh at the Mets than that. So, yeah, I think that might be a good thing about it. I don't really care about deferrals. It's all weird. Everybody's got too much money. You just sort of have to not think about it.
Okay, so let's move on to something we actually would like to keep now. Things that happened in 2024 that we would like to see more of. I'm going to start off with Brent Rooker's Twitter account. I absolutely love the fact that we have a Major League player who is at a club that has effectively stopped player teams, they'll stopped fans from communicating with the club because the official Twitter account blocked comments over a year ago now, but you still have basically their top player and probably now the face of that franchise for the next few years being very active on Twitter, being very active, telling people what it's actually like and telling people to shut up and listen to someone who actually knows the truth. And to me, that's awesome. More of it, please. More players doing the same.
Yeah, Brent
It
is
seems
great. His honesty is great. Everything he shares about the game is great. And I think he's probably got a very long career in whatever he wants to do in terms of broadcasting, podcasting, whatever he would like, because he's got a great personality as well. So yeah, very entertaining guy, and much more, please.
yeah, there's a brain there. He's articulate, intelligent. You genuinely want to hear him talk. Yeah, good bloke. Much more. I completely agree. That is something we could do with more of.
Okay, Rob, what else can we do with more of?
Tighter gaps at the top of the divisions. That's something 2024 had that we haven't had in a while. Again, I did some research. I pulled some numbers up. Look at me against you two pulling up numbers. So in
I don't know. I feel
20
it is pretty on key for Rob to do research for the kind of the more feely vibesy sort of pods.
Agreed.
Well, so the average gap between first and second in each division over the last few years in 2021 was 6.42. 2022 it was 10.5. 2013 was 8.3, and then we've dropped away to 5.5 as the average gap between number one and two over 2024. And it's a little bit the death of the super team, also a little bit the death of the absolutely dreadful teams other than the White Sox. The likes of the A's have pulled their bootstraps up a little bit. The Royals are much better. We haven't had those dreadful teams, and it's just made it more competitive. And I there's arguments about not wanting to have a homogenous middle, but a homogenous middle is giving us better competitions. Every division was still in play in some way or another in the last week of 2024. So long may that continue, because I don't want to go back to, oh, it's September, therefore the AL West is completed. Long may the Padres keep pushing and catching up the Dodgers and the rest of that division. So yeah, I think we had a really competitive year at the top. Uh, Again, not everyone wanting to push as much as they can. It does have some downsides, but I think I prefer that to the boom and bust that we've seen since sort of COVID days, of teams who are either brilliant or awful, and the homogenous middle is giving us some better competition.
Darius.
Yeah, I agree. Competition is great. I think, one of mine is sort of follows on from this later on, I think probably slightly, but yeah, it's good when we have races late into the season. Keeps things interesting. We don't really want to have to hear about how, X division is boring, or certain teams are outspending everybody and making things uninteresting. That I think that's overblown anyway. I'll probably come on to that later, but yeah, it was a good race. It was good playoffs, even though the Dodgers won. I think we had some very competitive races and playoff series around. So it's good for baseball, and hope it continues.
Yes, it does. Okay, Darius, what would you like to keep from 2024?
I would like more Paul Skeens, basically. I want more elite rookie pitchers. I also want more Paul Skeens, to be fair. But especially Jackson Jobe, I think we're going to get another one, another sort of, blow your socks off, top of the rotation type starter performance I'm hoping for. And possibly from Andrew Painter as well. Hasn't pitched in a couple of years. I don't know if people remember, but he was sort of on track to start the season in the Phillies rotation. Incredibly young age a couple of years ago, and then he needed TJ and ended up missing the last couple of years. So we'll see how they bring him along. But I think both of them have got real front end talent, and I think this kind of stuff is also just great for baseball when we have these young guys come out of nowhere and really show their high end talent. It's really good. We are living in an age where we don't have a ton of these sort of real number one starters anymore. The old guard are fading away now. Kershaw and Verlander and Scherzer are not what they used to be. We haven't had a ton of guys come through to really replace that. So I would like to see us get back those, appointment viewing number one, three or four aces that just kind of occupy that space. And I think, yeah, hopefully that Job can do that for us.
Yeah, no, it'll be awesome to see. I think the side always is, as we've now got Skeens going into that sophomore time period, are we going to see the slump? Are we going to see how teams maybe worked out what they should do against him or not? But no, Job and Painter should both be fascinating people to see, and you'd love to either to get full seasons out of them or to get them coming up in May and having impact on teams that are going to make the rosters. I mean, going to make the postseason. Like that was the only thing that basically was missing from Skeens, stuff like that. He very much felt like an Otani, where it's like, oh, he's amazing, but he's not in the playoffs.
I would question. Now, this is a question to both of you. Pick a number here. What percentage of Paul Skeens do you think is the mustache? And what I mean is, there's plenty of fantastic young pitchers out there. Like and Paul Skeens, no doubt, his talent is good enough that it should be at the tip of everyone's tongue in the discussions. But the mustache does something, doesn't it? It's not just a neutral in there. There is a percentage of this Paul Skeens experience and why everyone loves Paul Skeens that is to do with the mustache. So, what percentage of him is mustache, and what percentage of him is everything else? Because I don't think it's zero.
So I think if you're gonna start this like logical argument, I think you have to start at the most extreme end of this and go start with Tom Selleck. So
Yeah.
effectively, like if we can basically say for him, how much is it the mustache?
Mm.
That gives us basically a high point to work from, Rob, and then we can kind of bring ourselves down. Like, is it too much to say it's like even like 30-40% of like what it is the mustache?
I was
And
to say like
like
I think
87% for Tom Selleck.
yeah.
for Selleck, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I don't think I'd even be able to pick him out of a lineup if he didn't have the mustache, and he certainly hasn't got any acting talent. Um,
Okay, so that
come at me, Selleck. But I think Skeens is probably less mustache, but I still don't think it's not a zero.
I don't think it's a zero. I still think it's a reasonable one, maybe in the teens or the early 20s of percentages. I think there are other things to Skeens as well. Obviously, his rookie nature, which he had last year, which he will lose, so the mustache could become more
Mm,
important. He does have a famous partner as well in Livy Dunn, which I think is
yeah,
also part of the
that
Skeens
helps.
brand. But yeah, if you were to shave his mustache off and put him in a Yankees
Oh
pinstripes,
wow.
would you recognize Paul Skeens, Darius?
Um, I think so, just because at first I
He's a
thought Rob was
unit.
actually asking literally what percentage of Paul Skeens' body is his mustache. And I was like, well, Paul Skeens is really tall, so I don't think very much. It's not quite the Selleck, I don't think it occupies quite enough of his face that I would be confused when it disappeared. Some of these guys go to the Yankees and you're like, what? Who was under there? You know, Garrett Cole having to shave to go into the Yankees was much weirder than Paul Skeens would be.
Mm,
And he also hasn't been like we've had one season of Paul Skeens basically, so I've not like got a decade of him with a tash ingrained into my memory.
mm.
I'm sure it won't take that long for the Yankees to sign him. Obviously, the Pirates won't extend him, but yeah, I think there would still be obviously that double take moment where you're like, "What? Where's the tash? Why? I should have put this on my list. Why isn't that in the bin?" Yankees
What,
facial
Paul
hair
Skeens
policy.
Tash? Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
We
This
know
is the
because we know
thing.
it's just not going to change. Like
No,
there's like
not going
I'm
to
waiting
change.
for like the superstar that would be like basically tell them to jog on, but who knows? We're not going to get there. All right, we'll move on to the next thing that I would like to keep, and this is a very specific thing that is to me and a subset of fans of one specific team. But I would like Cleveland's bullpen to pitch the same as it did last year, please. Um, there are not many times where you have four pitchers in the bullpen with ERAs below 2.5. Last time I checked, it never happened before. And so it's obviously not going to happen again this season, which is why it is in my what I would like to want to keep. But it was pretty amazing to kind of like watch those guys go out like week in, week out, and 95% of the time shut everybody down. And yes, I will give some credence to the fact that they faced a mostly AL Central team that were not particularly good, but it was still really exciting to watch because Cleveland didn't really score that many runs. So most of those games were 1 or 2 run games, and it was very entertaining to watch, and I would like more of it.
I mean,
Yeah.
given the Rays have to play Cleveland at least 4 times a year, I'd rather they didn't. So I'm out on that one.
Well, you're not going to get any arguments from me about relievers, Russ. So
Yes, as we'll get on to something else where I'll be talking about relievers where I think even Darius might be struggling. But okay, Rob, something else. The second thing that you would like to keep.
The London games, please. They were bloody marvelous.
Please, can we
Obviously,
have some more?
absolutely. Obviously, we're not getting them this year. But
Bloody
yeah,
French.
uh, zut alors. Yeah, it was, as I said, bloody marvelous. I had a little bit of a concern that perhaps this year was the year that everyone's sort of we've over the novelty. People aren't going to commit to it as much. But you know what? I probably had more fun this year than the previous years. So yeah, fantastic. Long way to continue. Let's get them back because I want to see the Rays play the Marlins because there's not many East Coast teams left to come over. No, I'm sure they'll find someone better. But yes, absolutely, bring it back. We won it. We drank it in. We had fantastic time. Somewhere in between post-traumatic stress and having the best time of your life due to levels of drinking. But yeah, brilliant. Bring it back. Let's have more. Put it in my veins, straight in.
Yes. Obviously, as far as we are aware, we're still the 2026 game will go ahead. No details yet on who will be playing there. Obviously, the season afterwards is 2027, which sadly is potentially. I'm less likely that there will be a game because we'll probably just have the same thing we had with the last CBA, where it might, if there's any time in that being agreed to, we probably won't have as many international games the first year of it because it will be the lead time of organizing those things is too much to kind of agree to do something 2 or 3 months in advance. But yeah, it's great fun. I don't think any of us can say otherwise. Darius, I think you needed to have more 4 a.m. kebabs and be up and ready for BP at 10 a.m. the next day. Yeah.
I don't think I had any kebabs. There was the McDonald's trip because I think it was literally the only place that was open.
You've just forgotten them because you were mullered.
Was it was
Well,
it was
I
was
don't
it
know. We go
Pringle
to
and Andy
get
Brown that were having the kebabs then, or was that
It
the
was, yeah.
previous year?
that was Pringle Andy the previous year. There's vegan kebab less convenient. Um, yeah, that was the previous year that Pringle and Andy. I can't release that photo. That's classified, but there is photographic evidence for 4 a.m. kebab from Andy Brown and Tom Pringle.
I would say I wouldn't begrudge the Germans or the Italians or the Czechs getting a game not instead but as well as us in the next CBA because I really fancy a Batflips road trip. And anyone who listens is welcome to come along because we'll have an absolutely amazing time in the back end of some weird place in Germany or essentially Prague. So yeah, let's do it. Let's have the Europe as well. Let's more and more people. Let's bring it in. I'm looking forward to it.
No, that would be amazing. Darius, what's the final thing that we are going to keep from 2024?
I put down Stolen Base Mania, and I'm not sure like whether it will continue to this level or not. I think we'll still be high because the rules have changed. But will we get Ellie De La Cruz's insane pace. He obviously tailed off towards the end of the season. Will Otani go wild now that he's back to pitching? I kind of doubt it. I just want some guys to just really go for it, like take advantage of these rules. If Ellie can try and get to 100, if somebody else we've seen that if you want to go and you have that intent to steal a lot of bases, you don't even need to be the fastest guy in the league. You can do it with good instincts and, picking the right moments. So I just kind of want people to keep pushing the envelope. I think it's better for the game to have more action on the base paths, whether they're successful or not. So I would like it to keep going the way it has been going. I'd like some more individual players to keep pushing those boundaries of what we might expect in terms of records.
Yeah, I feel that we need to find that player who's on an inconsequential team like Ellie to just go for it and kind of be
We
like,
we need
sorry,
a
was
White
this...
Sox who's going to get 650 plate appearances and have absolutely no reason to do anything other than try and steal 100 bases.
Yeah, you just like you knew how could that be, but I was also thinking like then I was like, oh wait, CJ Abrams, but then also he just did not really steal at a good rate last year, so
No, he just stopped. Yeah,
he just kind of like we got caught quite a lot, so you were just kind of like, maybe do not continue CJ because even the Nationals may have worked out that I think he was close to like 80% success rate, which in the current climate is pretty poor. Uh, so yes, no, that is awesome. Okay, let's now move on to what we believe is going to happen. So we're going to talk about a couple of things that we believe will continue. These are not our wants anymore. These are things that we just believe, and then we'll have new things that we believe are going to happen. Uh, so I'll start off. Both of my continues are kind of pessimistic, but the White Sox are going to be bad. The White Sox are going to be the worst team in baseball. Um, Also, the White Sox don't really look like they're going to get better because one of the key ways of getting better is getting a good draft pick, and they are a revenue sharing, paying team, not providing or not taking team, and they can't basically get a spot in the draft lottery a couple of years basically in a row. So even though basically they were the worst team in baseball last year, they're going to draft 10th in the next season, so they don't even get any of that benefit anymore. And I think to one of the things Rob was saying in his last point about there's no reason for teams to go for the bust really anymore. The draft lottery has done some things to kind of get rid of that, but this prospected or some of the projected White Sox lineups I've seen, especially on the pitching side, are ugly. Like I think they potentially have one player on their pitching lineup that has more service time than the rest of the people on the pitching lineup. So they have Martin Perez, who I think has about 12 years, and then there's only about three or four other people who have more than 1 year. So I don't know, Darius, if you've gone into the weeds yet with the Baseball Prospectus Annual on the White Sox, but this this doesn't look good.
it's not a great team. There's the odd little bit. They still have Luis Robert.
Yeah.
It's sort of easy to forget with how bad they were, but he does still exist. He is still on the team. We'll see how long for. And they do have some good prospects. They arguably have the two best left-handed pitching prospects in the minors in Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith. So it's not completely bare the cupboard, but there's not a lot to look forward to here. And yeah, who is going to try and steal 100 bases? Is it Mike Tautman? I don't think so. At least he gets on base a bit, I suppose. But yeah, it's going to be a season of hopefully let's throw some things at the wall and see what sticks. Because last year it was let's try Robbie Grossman in the outfield for 6 weeks for reasons that are best known to just the White Sox, I guess.
Yeah. So
Still
you
no
had an
idea what
opportunity
they were
to
doing there.
to do maybe what Boston did, to what Oakland did, which was just throw out all of your young players and see which ones do well. And I think they've kind of done well because of that. But throwing out multiple veterans who aren't good just felt like an idiotic decision, and they're dealing with the consequences in 2025. All right, Rob, give us something that you think will continue on from 2024.
I was going to say pictures of Andrew Vaughan looking sad and exhausted, but we saw enough of those last year. Postseason adverts are going to get more prominent. Like, do not for a moment think that these things are going to stay in the postseason. Those horrible helmet patches, I'm sure somebody liked them. I don't think many people did. Um, all they're doing right now is they're getting us used to them in the postseason, and it will not be long until we start seeing them on regular jerseys. Like long is fine, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, who knows, but it is absolutely coming. We will end up with football style sponsors on shirts, and then the team naming rights will come as well. So it's going to continue. Those big ugly helmet adverts, we're probably going to find there's a sleeve patch, there's something else. We got the Betfred Tigers before we know it, the Funky Pigeon Yankees. We could go on, like the Gazprom Braves, Durex Dodgers. You know, I've got loads of these. Preparation
The
HAs,
the
anyone?
the
Um,
Durex Dodgers.
I thought
You don't really want to be
alliteration.
dodging Durexes, though, do
Well,
you?
I was going to say, like, maybe you want to have a word with the missus about that before you make any decisions, Rob.
Yeah. Yeah, that's coming. I don't particularly want it, but I think yes, I mean, not the Durex dodging. That's a different story for elsewhere. But but yes, the dry rope Padres are a horrible thing coming in our future.
So, honestly, do you remember the name of the company that had the helmet sponsor?
Yeah, it was.
So that
No,
shows you
not a
how
clue.
much of an impact it has. I think it was Strauss, wasn't it?
Oh, it
Darius,
was.
do you
Yes,
remember?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was Johan, but it was nothing to do with that.
So, yeah, and obviously that had a lot of impact on you, Rob. The only thing I think that's had, and the ones that I've remembered from it was like the Capital One
Mm.
World Series, or wasn't the World Series, or maybe it was the Divisional Series. Um, I remember we had the one that was obviously the one that we all remember is you got to build them.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to build them.
That
That was very effective advertising. I mean, although I haven't gone
More Pringle
into,
related than
yeah,
but
I haven't
hey,
gone into
anything
building
else.
submarines, but I've
that got
probably told a
me.
lot more people to build them than I
That got
ever
me
have
to go
before.
to buildsubmarines.com, which I tell you that
Me
a
too.
significant number of advertising has never made me even go to a website. That got me onto a website before I realized what it actually was.
Yeah, I thought it
Yeah.
was a joke. I didn't think it was going to be building submarines, so I had to go and find out what it was because I assumed it was just going to be some obscure reference to something else.
And on that note, Darius, what else is going to continue from 2024?
Well, my first one is Rob Manfred announcing stupid rule ideas to test them out to the market because this seems to just be an annual occurrence now. Whatever it is, pitchers having to go 6 innings, the golden at bat or whatever the hell he's calling it now. Uh, we'll undoubtedly get some more of these where some idea that he doesn't particularly believe in, he just wants to do a bit of market testing, get thrown out there and get flung around. All the talking heads will go at it. Everybody will say what a stupid idea it is for a couple of weeks, and then they'll come out and say, "Well, we didn't want to do that anyway. That was a terrible idea. I don't believe in it." So I'm looking forward to the next one. Maybe we can. This feels like a Rob topic. Top 10 stupid Rob Manfred suggestions that we're going to get this season. I think we could probably run with this at some point, but I'd rather not hear them from Manfred himself.
Do you not think he's going to have too many other issues to deal with this season?
Do you mean like the not Sacramento Athletics?
Yeah, and not to go into what I think somebody else's comment points is for later on. We'll move swiftly onwards. I'll tell you my other thing that I think is going to continue from into 2024. I'm going to tell you the Baltimore Orioles will not spend money. They're going to become the next Rays. They're not going to be like Houston. They're not going to be a team that gets in position and then spends the money to get the free agents. They're going to try and trade away their good prospects when they're out of cost control, or trade when they have too many prospects to get in some better players. They've basically taken a load of the front office from the Rays, and the new owner has said, "Oh yes, I'll spend some money," but then has also come out this week and been like, "Salary cap, yes, please, must have a salary cap." So I'm sorry, Boston fans, Baltimore fans, but yeah, your team is I don't think you're going to win because your owners, I don't think, are going to spend money on big free agents.
Oh, well.
Sad. So is I mean, I just don't really get it. Like I'm sure Michael Elias has got some lovely spreadsheet somewhere showing how great a job he's done.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's just,
and
just
listen,
make some moves.
and as a pre insight into a podcast that will be coming after this one, John and I had a conversation with Zach Sott, who was the assistant GM at the Red Sox and was also the interim or acting GM at the Mets, and he pretty much said that everybody has models, but you basically have to go over those models when buying free agents to actually sign players. Because if you stick to your model, you will always not basically buy anybody because somebody will
It's,
outbid you.
it's not even the big splashes, is it? It's that they're not doing the middle bits. Like they could have thrown a little bit of money at a few guys, and they haven't even done that. That's where it's.
Charlie Morton.
Whoa, yeah. Whoa, there we go. I just drafted him actually. Um,
You hypocrite.
Leave it. Have your background to me yet, Rob? No, let's
no,
not
not
talk
yet.
about our our fantasy drafts while we are podcasting. Rob, what is another thing from 2024 that you believe is going to continue into 2025?
It's doom and gloom. The A's and the Rays stadium issues are only going to get worse. They're going to continue down the awful sort of. It's not even like a graph anymore. It's like someone falling downstairs holding something really expensive. It's that bad. The A's are gonna not end up where they should be through sheer incompetence, and the Rays because they seemingly have this self destruct. The latest there is they actually now they've told the guys in Tampa not to fix a stadium, then actually do fix a stadium. But we're not sure actually if we actually even want to continue with the new stadium that you're going to fund. So it's just an absolute cluster F. It's awful, and it's only going to get worse. Like the next step is going to be the Yankees' goodwill runs out and they're no longer allowed to play at their stadium for 2026. But they haven't got a roof. That's the next thing. God only knows what's going to happen with the A's. Like are they ever going to get funding? Are these lawsuits from teachers going to step in the way? Like, are they going to move to Las Vegas, or do we just have a team in a minor league park in Sacramento for the foreseeable? It's not going to get better in this next year. I think we're going to see more of the same things getting worse on worse, and it's bad for baseball. It's bad for the ideas of expansion, which I think we'd all like to see. It's just going to get worse this year. Now, maybe 26, 27 is where we'll start seeing some shoots again, but do not be fooled by the sound bites you hear this year. It is all getting worse for those two teams.
It's I don't disagree. I think the thing that I've said for a couple of years now is that I don't think the A's will ever make it to Vegas,
Mm.
and I think that they will get the Washington Nationals treatment, or sorry, the Montreal Expos treatment, as that the club will be taken away from them because they can't work out how to do anything, and some new owners will be put in place, and they may eventually get to Las Vegas with them, but they could go with that. Darius, what other thing are we going to continue to see in 2025 from 2024?
Uh, I alluded to this earlier, but I think we're going to see more hand wringing about competitive balance because obviously the Dodgers have done this to us with Sasaki being the latest in this long line of the Dodgers signing players because nobody else can sign players. Everybody goes to the Dodgers. It really doesn't matter, people. Like we had this last year, and the Dodgers, like limped into the postseason with this cobbled together rotation, and like ended up winning a series on Freddie Freeman's hobbled ankle. It's it's not a thing in baseball. Like you don't get juggernauts the way you do in other sports that are just inevitably going to win. Even if the Dodgers do win 115 games in the regular season, they'll still get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. That's just what baseball is like. So I don't think we need to worry about this. I think people can also complain when we don't have any super teams. It's nice to have a villain. I'm
Mhm.
pretty excited to see this collection of talent assembled. Regrettably, half of them will be injured by mid-season, and they'll be like still relying on Clayton Kershaw to come back and pitch some innings on them. So I just do not think it's worth worrying about. And hey, if the Dodgers do win 120 games, that's also kind of fun. Like it would be exciting to see the
Yeah.
record get beaten, and we'd still have some competitive playoffs. So just do not worry about it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think we talked a fair bit about that in the previous pod. That I think it's a big hoo-ha over nothing, and yeah, I don't think there's anything more to worry about then. Okay, new things. Let's talk about some brand spanking new things to finish this podcast off. Things that we think are going to happen in 2025 that did not happen in the past. Talking about the Dodgers, I think more people are going to try and copy them. I think a lot of people are going to try and have come into the season with a 6-man rotation, which is also just code for we're going to have too many arms ready to be available for the season, but we expect some, if not quite a few of them, to be injured by the time the season actually starts or during the season. I think this is the new market inefficiency in baseball, is that actually you should be using your IL spots as efficiently as possible, because guess what? There's no max on your IL spots during the season. You don't have to worry about your 40 man or you're taking your players off. You can have as many injured players as you like. So why bother basically getting a player that might give you 180 innings of 4.5 innings baseball when you can get two guys that'll give you 90 innings of 2.5 ERA baseball? I think that's where baseball is going. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, most likely it's probably not a good thing. But I think that's what the Dodgers have shown that they can, the success is from. It's what I think the Rays have shown in a few years as well, that actually just having tons of arms is the way that you actually get a good season of pitching out there. I've already seen 3 or 4 teams that have mentioned a 6-man rotation for 2025. Darius, is this on your radar as well?
Yeah, we'll see sort of the extent to which teams can manage it. I think the main obstacle might ultimately end up being how many live arms are left that teams actually think, yeah, we've got 6 of these guys we want to start. That
Yeah.
that might be the obstacle for a lot of teams, because you look down the depth chart and you go, I don't think they've got 5 guys I want to start. So that would be the problem.
Well, are you telling me the
Um,
Diamondbacks are not going to run a 6-man rotation with Jordan
not
Montgomery as their 6th man?
not unless Jordan Montgomery's had a great offseason. Yeah, that
The shape of his
doesn't
life.
seem that likely. I guess you can, sort of Tigers it up and try and piece things together with openers and bullpen arms and all sorts, but I think that's not really sustainable over a long term. You need a decent amount of luck to have that come together as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more teams trying it this year. And I think probably for most of them, they'll find that they don't actually have the personnel to make it happen.
I think the 6-man rotation is purely to keep the players happy. It's PR, internal PR. If you've got 5 guys on your roster already who are like, wow, these guys are top level starters, and you've got another guy you want to pick up, you're not going to tell him, well, yeah, you're going to be you, big money, are going to be fighting with the other 5 guys. No, we're going to run a 6-man rotation. Nobody's going to run a 6-man rotation for more than a few weeks. It's when the first arm goes, then we're back to 5 men. And I think you'll find by come May, everyone's back to a 5-man or fewer rotation. Like the 6-man thing is not a genuine attempt at running a 6-man rotation. It's just building in redundancy.
It's sproing management, as
Yeah.
we could say. Okay, Rob,
Hmm.
what do you think will be new in 2025?
I think new in 2025 will be there'll be a one and done confusion about the new shift and or base running rules. So they've made some very minor tweaks to the rules, and I think there's going to be just to clarify then. So the rule now is if anyone violates the shift rule, where you've got to have 2 guys either side of second base, and you're not allowed to be on the outfield dirt, you're not allowed to have outfielders on the infield dirt, all that. Um, Whereas it was an automatic ball, I believe, for violating that before. Now it's going to be an awarded base. Much like a balk, really, or catches interference, where everyone's just going to move up one. So that one I don't think is too bad. Where we're going to get more confusion, I think, is this new base running rule, which I had to read a couple of times to fully understand. Now, if I'm going to try and relay it, it's not going to make any sense. But essentially, people were told to overrun second base rather than sliding into second base. So if they got there, the third baseman could get in home, and then the second baseman is called out on the tag rather than being called out at second base. And so now they've changed it. that you can't do that anymore. So that your third baseman can't score on deliberately overrunning the second base. This is going to cause at some point a great big fight that no one quite understands what they're fighting about. One and done. It'll happen, and then we'll all be online with it again. But I think most people at this point won't even be aware of this rule having changed. And I think a team is going to fall afoul of it. There'll be a big scandal, and that'll be that, though. But we're going to have some kind of discourse over this very minor rule, which only affects very few teams. Notably, the Yankees who found this inefficiency and were deliberately overrunning second when there's two outs already. I didn't think I explained that rule very well. I'm not 100% sure I fully understand it, if I'm honest.
No, it's an interesting one because it requires umpires to interpret behavior, which I think is something that you should never basically have. I think it's a wrong change, and I do believe you are right that there will be some confusion at some point, be it from a coach or a manager, or probably more from someone commentating on a game and not understanding why something has happened, which is usually the funniest side to the game, where it's like, rule change, and we all have no idea what is going on. Darius, what's going to be new in 2025?
I think we might actually get an official announcement of the challenge system, whether that's, that we'll be using it next year. For those that don't know, they have been trialing sort of the robot umpire, but not full robot umpire in the minors. So the machine calls the balls and strikes, but players are allowed to use it to challenge the umpire's call rather than having it be the sort of overriding arbiter of all the balls and strikes. This seems to be the better way to operate it based on all the feedback and the testing they've done so far. So I think after another season of doing that in the minors, I think we might be approaching we're gonna do this in the majors announcement. And I'm all for it. I think this will be a good fusion of the technology and the existing system, and probably one announcement that Manfred will make that I won't get upset about. So that'll be good.
Yeah, that's a highly unlikely scenario. A Manfred announcement that doesn't send shivers down your spines. It's going to come.
All the pitch clock stuff has been good, so no complaints.
Yeah, I still kind of.
And we said earlier the draft lottery worked as well, so he's had some wins.
Yeah, that's just copying your peers. That one is. Not going to give him any credit for that one. And the other one is just enforcing a law that existed in the rule book anyway that you just chose not to enforce. So, no credit, for either of those two as far as I'm concerned. For Rob, but yeah, I will generally be fully on board with this. I think there is an entertainment perspective to all of this as well. Of many of us here have watched tennis or cricket or whatever to have this, but I think tennis is very good with the ooh hey moment of knowing whether something was a ball or a strike. So I think this could add to the entertainment value of a game, probably more on television than in the stadium, unless they kind of get it up on the big screen as well at the same time, so everybody else can see what is going on. But yeah, I think it could be a very good entertainment perspective, and just if we get rid of like the worst like 5% of calls, everything's just better. Although, hey Darius, you're taking away the Kyle Schwarber moment. If you can challenge it, he's not going to get ejected. He's going to be like, well, maybe he's going to get ejected because he was like, "I told you so," and then he'll get ejected for being like, "See, you're
I
wrong."
told you so.
What if he
Ejections
challenges and the robot agrees with the human umpire, and then he's like, "Well, you're both wrong," and he loses it even more. Just starts beating the machine,
punches the robot
with his bat.
There were reports that came out of like when this was first tested, like in single A. They had ones where the players didn't know that it was being tested, and they were arguing balls and strikes to the umpires when they were actually being done by the robot. So there are some umpires in single A that have basically been ripped into by players, and it was like, not my decision, bud. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to boldly predict will happen in 2025 is a bouncier ball. Like, I feel that we do not get consistency year on year. I don't know if this is just because we have more analytics available to us now than we ever did before. I very much imagine that the ability to making a more standardized ball is better now than it ever has been in the history of baseball. But we seem to go through variations year on year based on the batches and based on what seems to be created. So we got a little bit of a maybe not a deadened ball last year, but it didn't seem to be coming off the bat quite as much as we'd seen in some of the previous years. So I imagine someone has course corrected in the Rawlings laboratories, wherever they may be. I think they're in Puerto Rico, and then we will have a bouncier ball in 2025. So all hail your home run kings this year, I think.
100. That's what we want.
The 100 is like if you're talking about the fact that you've changed the like. I think I saw an interview with Kenny Lofton saying that like he'd get 100 stolen bases in this current thing, and I'm like, no, because your team just wouldn't let you do it. Like, and if you started to steal when they said no, and you were getting caught, well, you get dropped. Like, like
yeah.
the 100 is let's get like 60-60 first, Darius.
Nah, straight to 100. The double Otani.
the double Otani.
Okay. Ellie can do 60-60. It's fine. With your new juice ball, Russ.
Yeah,
in Cincinnati. Come on, it's going to be flying.
Flying out that park, yeah, indeed. It's definitely got some pretty juicy Statcast home run ballpark vectors. That stadium does. Okay, Rob, what is the last thing you think is going to be new to 2025?
White Sox milkshake arms race. The White Sox milkshake was probably the most famous and successful thing that happened in the South Side last year. They had their great big fancy milkshake, and I reckon that our hipster friendly Bryce Harper doing TikToks, making coffee friendly crowd are gonna follow along. There's gonna be some sort of ridiculously overly priced, overly made version of normal food stuff in every park that is going to challenge the White Sox milkshake for supremacy as the peak thing you can get in a ballpark. I think we got to weird stuff. We've been through weird stuff. We've been through cheap offers where you can get, I managed to spend $20 on a $2 hot dog night once and regretted that. But we've had the cheap, we've had that. Now I think we're going to go super super fancy, like really over spec stuff. So I think we got that up our sleeves. Some ideas I came up with. Maybe the Cardinals can have a mac and cheese made where there's an in-house cow milked by Wade Miley. It goes into making the cheese for you, and it takes bloody ages and costs you £100 to get this fancy mac and cheese. Or the Astros have a special orange juice which is freshly squeezed against a bin lid. The old classics are the best.
Maybe do you know they're no longer sponsored by Minute Maid?
Well, I know, yeah, absolutely. And maybe the Blue Jays will make the second best version of everything. But yes, I think there's gonna be an arms race. I think ridiculously hipstery, overpriced. It's gonna be like a bowl of cereal that's got like one honey nut loop, one whatever. It's gonna be something strange and weird, but it's gonna be like pinnacly over engineered. Normal foods are gonna become the new market inefficiency in ballpark food and beverage.
Amazing. I have no comments.
My comment is that I'm very grateful that the words he said after mac and cheese weren't milkshake.
Oh man. Taking a note.
He's writing it down.
All right, Darius, finish us off for this podcast. What are we going to see in 2025 that we did not see in 2024?
I am going to say that for the first time in, well, if you don't count 2020, 9 years, I believe, the Houston Astros will not win the AL West. It's time for a new division winner. Others have come and tried and failed, blown it up. Jim Crane doesn't know what he's doing over there. They're, trading away Ryan Presley. They're trading away Kyle Tucker. I think it's going to be a disaster. It's all burning down. The empire is in pieces, and I don't know who it's going to be. I'm just saying somebody else.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. That's why this is a bold prediction.
I don't doubt that the Astros are going to fall off. It's who's actually going to be competent enough to pick up the pieces and overtake them is more the problem.
Why, sir, I did not mention the last week, but the Texas Rangers. This year shall be the year when this podcast is all in on the Rangers. We're going to flip-flop like the best Donald Trump. We're going to be a year where the Rangers are bad and then the Rangers are good, and then you won't know which one we're going to say no matter what happens.
Jacob deGrom comeback tour. It's all happening. Hey, maybe the Mariners will sign somebody. Yeah, okay. That's not going to happen. The Mariners are gonna win 85 games with like the best rotation in baseball and the worst offense in baseball.
Oh, thank you, Darius.
But 85 games might beat the Astros. Could happen. Could happen.
Could be one of the first teams to win with a below 500 record. Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. This is what Jerry DiPaolo has been waiting for. Just the Astros to be this mediocre, so he doesn't have
54%. Here
to
it comes.
get anybody. 54%. That's all we need, baby.
Oh,
54% is going to do it this year.
54%. And on that bombshell, thank you both, Darius and Rob, for your glorious insights on what we want to keep, what we want to bin, what we want to see, and what we expect to see more of in the 2025 baseball season. It has been a pleasure, as always, to chat with you fine gentlemen. As always, you can find us at batflips_nerds on Twitter/X and Batflips and Nerds on many other social sites. We do now show these clips on YouTube as well. So if you have listened to this and would have liked to have watched and seen a few of our faces and cackles to some of the responses that has been done through, these are now available on our YouTube channel as well. So please do like, share, and subscribe. Got to get those buzzwords in. Cheers, boys.
Just like the Ute.